Welcome to the Battle Ready podcast, where we know that every single day is a battle. This show is about equipping you mentally, physically, and spiritually to win the daily battles. I want you to become totally free, whole, and powerful. It's time to step into your battles equipped and ready to win. I'm your host, Dr. Kaylee Judge. Let's get battle ready. Hello, and welcome back to the Battle Ready podcast. We are on week 3 with Dr. Traci.
I'm so glad to be back here with you. We were just talking about what are we going to do on Friday when we don't get this hour of time together every week.
This is like a blessing of an hour. I feel like I'm just hanging out with a friend, cross country, just hanging out, and we get to spend a special hour together. If you guys have been with us, You've learned about Skinny Nikki. We brought in Frumpy Fran last week. We went through all the hormones and everything. I think I got a lot of feedback from last week's episode just with the explanation of hormones and even how, like you were mentioning, like you can't work out enough to sustain your weight loss, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times it's hormone. It's a huge puzzle. And I think sometimes when people have a goal, they just look at one component. Like, I'm just going to not eat and I'm definitely going to lose weight. And it's that's not a healthy, sustainable lifestyle. So let's figure out what we need to do. And so I think that's going to lead us well into this week, where we're really going to hit on fad diets. So all the diets that people tend to gravitate towards, specifically in different seasons. You'll have something pop up and this is the answer and this is the way that things are going to change. So specifically in different seasons, people get wrapped up in these fad diets. Like, what's the next new thing? What's the thing that's going to get one person had this massive success and then they go and market it. And really, I think diets are designed for marketing campaigns. And
absolutely. And to move somebody forward professionally. That's the thing we have to think about too, is if you can brand something, if you can say, we're going to package this. And so part of it is really brilliant because it gets people engaged in a tribe mentality, like jump on the bandwagon of something or a movement, if you will.
Oh, for sure. And I'm guilty of being caught up in this cycle of things too. As much as I try to resist it, there's moments where I'm like, okay, fine, I'll just try it and see what happens. And so a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today, most of which I've been a part of, and I've put my toes in the water to see how it is. And I have had great success with some things, and some things I had the opposite effect happen to me than what was marketed as. And I think a lot of that, if we shift back to last week's episode, is hormones. I mean, your hormones matter when it comes to what type of a diet's going to work for you. And really, again, we want to get away from this word diet. Dr. Traci, we were talking about it the other day, and she's like, "We're just going to rip these things apart or what?" And I was like, well, I don't know if we're going to rip them apart, because I know some people have great success with these things, and it really truly has turned into a lifestyle for them. However,
the other thing is I really believe, and I know some of these people and professionals personally, most everybody that is behind something, take the Hartwigs, for example, a Whole30. We'll talk about Whole30 today. Just this deep desire to see massive change in a culture. And that's where most professionals are coming from. And so I can look at all of these, different fad diets and find good in everything.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, like you said, it comes out of the right intention. But I think we then take that and it turns into, oh, you're not doing this, then you don't know how to eat, right? And one thing that we just have to come into common ground with is not every diet is made for every single body, because every body is going to react differently. And I think if we can get you to come out of anything this week is to really have a knowledge and understanding about how um, how your body works and what it's going to take to fuel your body correctly, and what might be working for somebody else isn't going to work for you because your body is built differently, or your hormones have been destroyed differently, or something has happened. So
Mm-hmm.
where should we start?
Well, I think it's first, let's just, before we dig into the fad diets, let's just talk about diet just as in general, as a whole. And for my patients, I just say, listen, if you're going to continue to look at this as a diet and not a lifestyle shift, you're going to quit.
Mm-hmm.
Because every diet ends. Everyone, like nobody's going to be on a diet for an eternity, or for the rest of your life. And so you have to be looking at this as a lifestyle shift, and it's a journey. Everybody's body is aging every day. We're getting older. And so we have to think, okay, it's a journey. It's not ending here. We have to continually focus on our health and invest in it, because if you don't, you are going to see negative effects. And as you age, you're going to see negative effects quicker and accumulate faster. So I think if you can just agree and commit to saying, I'm going to change my life. And then the journey becomes, let's take what works from these things. Yeah. Let's just, for our Trubalance offices, which are our weight loss offices in Arkansas, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Louisiana, we are not saying, hey, this is a Trubalance diet. This is what's going to bring your hormones back to balance. This is what's going to do these things. We take out a lot of foods in the beginning and then add things back in slowly. And if we can't figure it out, I just did a food sensitivity panel for my brother. He's really been struggling with things like depression and anxiety, with chronic fatigue. And he's 9 years younger than me. He's just turned 30. And it was just crazy. I can't believe that. but he also at 30 years old is having chronic pain. And when he tried all of these things, we found out that he has an IgG sensitivity off the charts to dairy, off the charts to wheat and gluten and gliadin, off the chart to egg whites and egg yolk, off the charts to almonds, pistachios, and cashews. And these are things that he was eating that were seemingly really healthy for him. And, and it's not to say that those are lifetime sensitivities. Those are things that he just needs to take out of his diet for 6 months, allow his body to heal, to get the inflammatory levels down, to allow his hormone receptors to heal, get his body into a fat burning mode, and just start moving forward from there. Then he can start adding things back in, or we retest and figure out, is the IgG sensitivity still there, or are there certain things we can start to add back in? Yeah. So that's just a baseline of where we are with a lot of these things. But I say, boy, if you can move forward in your health without spending a lot of money on lab tests and, all of these things that are going to be cost prohibitive, and you can start investing in your health to move forward, that's where we want you to land.
Yeah. And that's totally right on the money. And that, after going through like my health really journey, like I was blessed to know the chiropractic portion of health my whole entire life, adjusted since the day I was born, never been vaccinated, never taken medications, always active. I was in sports my whole entire life. But nutrition was never like a known thing for our family. And that wasn't until the last probably 12, 13, 14 years that I really started learning about things, that hit home. And over that time, it's like, well, I got to try this because they say that this is the best thing for you. And I think that there's a trial and error period, especially for us as physicians. Like, we got to know, I'm not going to have somebody else do something without me trying it first. And so we got to just kind of know what the footwork is with that. But throughout this whole thing, like I've kind of just anchored into a more simplistic mindset towards food, and like, let's just get back to eating real food. Like, where did that go? If you stay away from the processed things, the things that come out of a box, the things that are in the freezers, the things that are pre-made for you, and you move back to what God intended us to be living and eating off of, the good meats, even the good dairy, the good organic fruits and vegetables, things like that, you're going to see a shift happen, because that's really honestly what your body is craving. And also like seasonal aspects of things. And, is people ask me all the time, like, is honey a bad thing? No, it's not. I don't believe honey is a bad thing, but like, think about how honey is initially made. It's in a hive up in a tree. And so you have to work to go get it and like be stealthy about getting the honey out of there. And yet you can just go to a grocery store and grab it off the shelf and have massive quantities of it. And so in that case, yeah, honey is a bad thing. And so we really have to shift our mind from,
I don't know about you, but I'm scared to death of bees. Like if it was left up to me in nature, no honey for this girl.
No honey.
None. Zero. Running.
Or heights.
No,
like, I don't like heights. Like there's no way I'm not going up there.
I don't either. I'm a healthy. There we go. Two of my fears.
Right?
Heights and bees.
Done. No sugar. And that's even like pineapples and or things that are up in these trees, banana, like stuff, like you have to work. And there's always an argument, is it bad for you? And I don't think a fruit and a vegetable are bad for you, but I think that along the way you may have destroyed your body in some way that at this point in time, yeah, it is bad for you, and you have to allow your body to heal until you can start, like you said, reintroducing that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there is the topic for today is fad diets. And I would say anything that has diet, it's fad, because again, it's not necessarily a lifestyle. Although some of these have become lifestyles for some people. But boy, I'm looking at talking with Dr. Kaylee, I'm like, which ones do you want to talk about? Because there are a zillion. I mean, Atkins, pre-diabetes, I'm like pre-diabetes diet. Weird. Like, how about diabetes prevention or reversal diet? South Beach, cabbage soup, Dubro diet, Mediterranean diet, ultimate volumetrics diet. Then there's the vegetarian, pescatarian. They're even there's a book I think called Ketotarian. Bulletproof is a big one with Dave Asprey. Is that who wrote that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Okinawan diet. You have Okinawan, then Mediterranean, and then blue zones. Those are all areas of the world where people live to be over 100 years old the most often. Mm-hmm. So those are areas that are studied because they're seemingly doing something right there. And books have been written about those areas. Then you have the PCOS diet and the fast metabolism diet. Those are really focused and geared towards hormone health and for women, probably. Bright Line Eating, I really like her. She just gives, I think she's a psychiatrist by trade, but is given some really, structure around the food that you're putting in your body is for food addictions. DASH diet, Plant Paradox, talking about leptins. There's just a lot too. So we're not going to talk about, go ahead.
So I went on a website and I looked up, typed in just fad diets, and it was and then there's words that are made up, like the OMAD, like 1 meal a day diet, and all these things. I'm like, now we're oh, it's so good. I'm no wonder why people are just so confused. I'm like, what am I supposed to eat?
Yeah. So confusing. So we're going to talk about some of the popular ones right now, and that are, right now, like Whole30. What about intermittent fasting? We'll talk about that. What about keto? CERT foods is a big one right now that I think is worth mentioning and talking about, to just start to say, okay, and paleo, of course, is a big one, particularly in the CrossFit community. What are the benefits of these, and why, are there any that we should dive into? What can we take away from each one? But at the end of all of this, let's please be sure, again, I'm going to say it again, to commit to a lifestyle that is geared towards reducing inflammation, promoting health, and not saying I'm going to try this thing. One of the most frustrating things for me as a wellness physician is having a patient come in and say, oh yeah, I've tried Whole30. I've done Whole30 a few times. Like, what do you mean a few times? But that's what it is designed. It's 30 days. And people think 30 days and I'm done. 30 days and I'm done, or 30 days and I'll transition into paleo until you're done with paleo. You know, it doesn't make any sense.
And it's hard because, I mean, I know whether you're talking, we can be having this conversation from a couple different aspects. We can have it from a weight loss perspective. We can have it from a sports performance perspective. We can have it from a strength and conditioning. We can have it from all kinds of different things, maintaining our weights. And like you said, the thing is with diets is that there's an end date. And that's the last thing we want to have people do, is have an end date. So when we talk about Whole30, you know, it's Whole30. Like, you're not doing that for the rest of your life. And that's how it was designed and it was planned. Do I think that that's a great, like, Kickstarter thing? Yeah, but make sure you have a plan to jump in after.
Yeah.
And really, because some people need, like, I just need to know exactly what to eat on what days and what not to eat on certain days too, you know?
Yes. You know what I love about Whole30 is they really look at removing all potentially inflammatory foods and beverages. So anything you're eating and drinking that's going to increase inflammation. And what we know about inflammation is it's the root of all disease. And, but, you know, again, this should never be something that's done for just 30 days. And so they will have you take out just if you've done Whole30, I know a lot of people have, you'll have you take out any added sugar, sweeteners. You're not even allowed, like stevia or anything like that for 30 days, which I think is good.
Yeah.
If you're addicted to sugar at any level, which is a large percentage of you, even having a better option for sweet like a stevia is going to still trigger the cravings. So if you're finding yourself like, I need this, I'm addicted to this, you know, addiction is anything that takes you away from who you are. And if you find yourself thinking about something a lot, it might be something worth, you know,
looking into,
really diving into. But if that's you, I encourage you to take even stevia out. Well, I think what you'll find is you don't even really desire it anymore once you've allowed your dopamine receptors to heal. But you cut out alcohol, grains, legumes, dairy, processed foods and beverages, baked goods, all the junk foods. And then you're limited. They have you eat 3 clean meals a day, which is basically consists of meat, seafood, veggies, and eggs. And so it even limits fruits. Now, is there anything wrong with that? Here's the concern with the American Dietary Association. Guess where they ranked Whole30? Like dead last on compared to a lot of these other programs, because they say that restriction of any one food group is not sustainable. And you know, there's a concern that if you're taking dairy out, for example, you're not going to get your daily allowance of calcium, which is going to inhibit your bone health. You know, it's a specific concern for women, and which isn't true.
Which is interesting because if you really look into like the dairy aspect of stuff, the type of dairy that most people are eating or drinking, consuming, is super acidic. And so what that's doing is actually leaching the calcium from your bones anyway. So the reason why you're eating and drinking this milk is to get calcium into your body. And because of the acidity of the milk, it is actually leaching the calcium from your bones, which is like,
yeah, mine. Well, the American Dairy Association has done a really brilliant job. Think about all the commercials you've seen. Milk does a body good, making us think that it's the thing we need to keep our bodies healthy and our bones strong. And it's just not true. And you can get more calcium from a bunch of broccoli than you can, and probably more usable and absorbable than you can from a glass of milk. So it's just knowing where, you know, the sources and thinking through all of these things.
That's good.
Yeah. So again, the one thing about Whole30 that concerns me is it's great. It teaches you, it gives you structure on how to take things out and how to do it, what to do. So the Whole30 as a whole is really good. I think that my concern is that most people that I've talked to the common narrative is I've done Whole30. I've done it. And then go back to their old ways. And if you have that in your head, I'm going to do this for 30 days. Guess what? The one thing that you're going to crave and look forward to is whatever the junk, whatever the stuff was that you took out, because you didn't commit to a lifestyle change.
Right.
You committed to 30 days.
Right.
So there's a lot of really good takeaways from Whole30. And listen, I'm not suggesting you have to take out all the things for the rest of your life. Once you get to a place where you're your ideal weight and we've figured out a lot of the health issues and you're rolling, then 80 to 90% of the time, eat well, clean, God food. If man got in the middle of it, he probably messed it up a little bit. If God made it, eat it, and then 10 to 20% of the time, you can eat whatever you want.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. There was one thing, like there was this, they called it Saturday. So you eat clean, you eat super clean Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then Saturday, like you literally go and eat and do whatever you want, which logically sounds like a great time. But the reality is that eventually what that's going to turn into is like Saturday is going to be Thursday and Monday. And so for me, like I ate a very, like Monday through Friday is like strict and my meals are planned out. I'm doing specific things. There's only certain things that are even allowed in my house. And then on the weekends, I'll have, okay, I'm going to go to lunch on this day. Like Sunday brunch for me, like that is like solid yellow lines. I go to Sunday brunch and that is where I get to do without any judgment, whatever I want to do. But that's one meal of the whole week where I like have no thought process towards it. And it works. I feel fulfilled. I feel like I'm not getting cheated or deprived, but that's where I'm at, and that's what I've had to kind of enter in for myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's so good. Let's go on to keto.
I love keto because, okay, I love it because of the like strangeness towards it, and how many people have jumped on board with it. And yes, it does work for so many people, but for some people, it is a disaster.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's a disaster. I would say for a lot of people, it can be, because staying in ketosis, to stay in fat burning at that level where you're consuming 75% of your macronutrients is fat, 20% is protein. I would say that's an average kind of a standard ketogenic plan, and only 5% is carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, it takes a lot of discipline to stay there.
Yeah.
And if you're going back and forth a lot, it can actually have negative effects, what I've found.
Yeah. And even especially if your hormones are out of control and then you jump into a keto diet, it can mess it up even worse. So a lot of women actually have trouble in going into a ketosis diet. For myself personally, I ended up gaining 10 plus pounds following like super, super strict ketogenic diet, gaining 10 pounds. And I was sluggish and I couldn't get the weight back. Like once I figured I'm like, this is not working for me, I had to jump off of that. And so you've got to be aware, like if you notice your body, like my legs were getting, like everything was swollen and like inflamed. And so there was just things that my body wasn't agreeing with.
There's some just baseline things. This diet is not for you if you have any pancreas issues. And I'm not suggesting just diabetes, because this can be a diabetes reversal plan. It can be really great for you. But thyroid and adrenal fatigue, particularly thyroid issues, and you can have low-level thyroid dysfunction and not know it. Like it can be just enough for you to feel sluggish and gain weight, but still not show up on a lab test. Like your TSH levels are normal, your T4 level, everything can be normal, quote unquote normal, but you can still have low-level thyroid dysfunction. Here's a good way to test. Take your basal body temperature every morning. Every morning, if you're running below 97, you have low-level thyroid dysfunction, even if it's not showing up on a lab test. Okay? Then you should not be doing a ketogenic plan. That's my professional opinion. Some people may argue with that, but I think those are the situations where you can have an effect, like where it's not doing the things that you would expect it to do.
Especially
So
if you know, like, you're following the rules, and like you're like being honest with you, like following everything it says, eating the right foods, doing the right thing, and it's doing the opposite effect, and it's not right for you, and you have to reanalyze what's going on.
yes. Yeah.
And not
We
get
call that after action review. That is some of the rules of success is you have your goal set. Let's say you have your mindset that you're going to follow a ketogenic plan. That's your goal. That's what you're going to do. And for what, you may have your objective attached to it. It's really great for weight loss. There's been a lot of studies on a standard ketogenic plan and a high protein ketogenic plan. There's really 4 different types of ketogenic plans you can follow. There's a lot of research behind the standard and the high protein one. In fact, with the standard ketogenic, you're shown to lose weight 2.5, almost 2.5. That's 2.2 times faster than if you were just to follow caloric restriction with a low fat diet. Mm-hmm. We know the American Heart Association has already said, hey, sorry about that low fat thing, messed up, incidence of heart disease and diabetes and everything increased exponentially when the American Heart Association put that in place to say no fat, low fat, fat-free everything. Fat is good. It is your body needs it. Your brain is made of fat. Your nerves are enclosed and protected by fat. Your organs are protected by fat. Fat is good in your diet as long as it's the right type.
And that's the other thing too, is like you can't do I was gonna just cuss right there. I'm just not gonna do it. You can't do a version of keto and expect it to have those results. So you have to be on point. Good quality nutrients, good quality food, good quality fat, good quality things, and not just because it's fat doesn't mean that it works. Right. And
yes.
So and being honest with where you're at with that. So yeah, so keto.
The first time I ever, witnessed some type of diet like this was with my parents when I was, obesity runs in my family. My mom has lost over 60 pounds and kept it off now for over 5 years, just with the protocols and things that we have in place. She's done amazing. She always says, you saved my life. And I'm like, no, you did. You did it. You saved your own. You did the work. Sometimes you just need the tools and you need to commit. But I remember my parents, my mom and my stepdad, following an Atkins diet. Back in the day, I must have been 7 or 8 years old. And they made loads of bacon. My stepdad is a butcher. So how easy was that for them? I mean, it was just like all they're eating was meat and fat. Mm-hmm. So Atkins is basically a high protein diet. But it doesn't really have any regard for the type of protein or the type of fat at all. And so even though it worked, they lost weight. It wasn't sustainable. And it really, my concern now looking back at that is what kind of acidic environment that created in the body, and actually increased LDL, the bad cholesterol. Because if you're left in an inflammatory state, that bad cholesterol will go high, and that's when that cholesterol levels become a concern. Keto diets are really good for heart disease prevention. And so I hear oftentimes people saying, well, my cholesterol levels are high. Shouldn't I cut fat out? No, that is not how it works. The American Heart Association has already said, like I said, they messed up. We have got to shut that off in our brains. Low fat is not good because it increases the amount of bad sugars that you're consuming. And that is going to lead to high inflammatory markers in your body. That's what's going to lead to cholesterol levels being high because your body is trying to heal. It is not the fat that's doing it. But bad fat will do it. Okay. So that's one thing to really keep in mind if you're looking at a ketogenic diet. So keto is also really good. I recommend for neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia, Parkinson's even, has a really healing effect on the brain because you're not giving the brain glucose. The fat will convert to ketones in the liver, and that will give the brain energy. And so even people with epilepsy and seizure activity, ketogenic diet is really highly recommended for that, because the brain doesn't respond in a seizure pattern to ketones like it does to glucose. Make sense?
Yep. Total sense.
Yeah. There are a couple different types of cycling in a keto plan that you could do, like a targeted and a cyclical. These are typically, though, for bodybuilders and athletes that need a little bit higher carb cycling. So targeted is more you're adding carbs around the workouts. And then you have the cyclical, which is maybe do 5 days of straight keto where you're doing, in terms of the macro ratio, you're keeping the fat coming in at 70 to 90, 80%. And then you do 2 days where you're dropping the fat down and increasing protein a little bit, or maybe a little bit of carbs in there. So, but again, those are more geared towards bodybuilders, athletes that need a little bit more carbohydrate consumption. Mm-hmm. I would say for the average person, a standard ketogenic diet is going to be one of the better ones. Couple other recommendations for people who are really thinking about keto and what they're good for. Have you ever had a brain injury? Keto is really healing for that because it has the same impact. Again, ketones give the brain energy instead of the glucose. It just allows the brain to heal faster. So that's something to consider. If you've had a concussion, if you've been in a car accident and hit your head on the window or something crazy, you might just consider doing keto for 6 months or so to really allow your brain to heal from post-concussive syndrome or other brain injuries. And then I think this is also worth mentioning because I talk about candida a lot in my practice, that if you have any level of candida, if you've ever had a yeast infection, if you struggle with acne or skin issues, it's likely that you have a systemic overgrowth of candida, which is a yeast in the body, and yeast is fed by sugar. And so by eliminating some of the carbohydrates down to 5%, because that's really 10 grams of sugar per day is kind of an average of what you would have to cut it down to.
Which is like
that really, it's nothing. It's like an apple.
Yeah.
That's about it, right?
An apple, depending on the apple, it might even
Granny Smith.
Yeah.
That's to be green and sour. Too much.
Not tasty kind.
Yeah. Not the fruit that's been genetically modified to be sweeter so we eat more, seriously, when we talk about how man messed things up.
Yeah.
Trying to genetically modify our God food now. So we got to be careful. So anyway, the candida, if you have acne, it's likely that you have some underlying bacteria or fungus going on and systemically in your body. And so it's just time to cut the sugar out. It's creating an inflammatory response. It's feeding the bad bacteria and fungus. And I think you'll see a massive change in your health. Yeah. There's a couple Dr. Josh Axe is a dear friend of mine. Joseph Mercola I've been following for years and years and years. They both have books on a ketogenic diet. Just because some of those guys have books on it does not mean it's the creme de la creme of a nutrition plan to follow. I think there are very specific times where a ketogenic diet is you follow it. You have cancer. It's a good plan to starve cancer cells. Cancer cells have 8 times the receptors than a normal healthy cell for sugar, particularly fermented sugar. So if it's sitting in your gut for a while, it's going to feed it.
So what that mean when she says that it's actually like 8 to 16 times the receptor sites on cancer cells. And I love this. And I'm a very much of a visual picture type of a person. So what I think of is when you have a cancer tumor and you have 8 times, so it's 8 times, 16 times extra arms reaching out into your bloodstream, grabbing all of the sugar that's in your bloodstream. And it is every single time that it grabs sugar, it's like poof, gasoline on a fire, and let's build this tumor even more. So so when she's talking about that's not a small statement. And you go into a cancer, what ticks me off is you go into a cancer center ward And like they're feeding these people different types of sugary foods. And it's like, man, like the exact same thing you're trying to get rid of is the exact same thing that you're feeding. But that happens all day long. And we're so addicted to sugar. And sugar is literally in every produced thing out there because they know that it is addictive. And so you're going to be going after and grabbing it. Your taste buds are going to be happy. And so you've got to stay away from these packaged things because there's stuff in there that you don't even know is supposed to be in there. So that's a massive statement talking about sugar. And sugar is a cause of inflammation. And like you said before, Dr. Traci, inflammation is a root cause of every single disease. Like you cannot show me a disease without inflammation attached to it and do that. So the main goal is like, let's drive down. The first thing I do with patients is like, let's drive down your inflammation. Let's figure out why your body's going into an inflammatory state. If we can get that under control, then we'll have a chance of allowing your body to start healing.
Yes. Listen, even if you've been trying to cut out sugars, I need you to really focus here. And let me just share a little personal story. When my son, my oldest son, was 2 years old, he started having diarrhea randomly. And we thought it was a parasite. We had traveled to Mexico, so we did a parasite cleanse with some black walnut tincture, and we just didn't clear it up. And I just thought, and I'm going to go back to this food sensitivity panel because it's changed so many of my patients' lives and ours as well. But I did a food sensitivity panel on him, and he was off the charts sensitive to cane sugar. And I thought, how can this be? We don't have sugar in our house. Like we don't eat sweets. If I bake something, I don't bake it with cane sugar. Mm-hmm. We don't use brown sugar, which is cane sugar with molasses. I don't understand. I was so confused. I didn't understand. And then I started to just really look. And I'm like, oh, there's cane sugar and ketchup. Like we use organic ketchup that doesn't have high fructose corn syrup. It has organic cane sugar. Mm-hmm. We were giving our kids some, like occasionally they would have goldfish. There's cane sugar in that. They would occasionally have some fruit snacks. There's cane sugar in that. There is cane sugar in your dressings. There are cane sugar in every bread, cookie, cracker you could ever imagine. There is, I'm just telling you that you're not looking close enough. Mm-hmm. If you have inflammatory levels, if you have weight loss resistance, you are not looking close enough. And you have to start reading your labels every day. These diets aren't going to do it for you. It is going to be you taking control of what's in your pantry, of what's in your refrigerator, of what you're bringing into your home, and getting committed to fuel your body the way that God designed it to be fueled. Not the food industry trying to make you eat more junk to make you sicker. It's just this mess. It drives me nuts.
And it might be a little bit until like you might have to go through a season where your food is plain and it's not fun to eat, but it really.
But you know what? I have a patient who cut Cokes out and changed his diet, cut all the stuff out. And they were on a road trip, and he has 6 kids. And so he's driving the car, everyone's sleeping. And he's like, I'm just so tired. I'm going to stop and get a Coke at McDonald's. So he pulls off on the interstate, goes through the drive-through, orders a Coke, gets back on the interstate, takes a drink, spits it out his window. He's like, something's wrong with this. Goes to the next exit, goes to a gas station and goes in to get a bottle of Coke, gets back in his car, gets on the interstate, opens it up, takes a drink, spits it out his window. Nothing was wrong with the Coke. His palate changed. Mm-hmm. He's like, I didn't even like it. It tastes like I was drinking chemicals.
Yeah.
You have to, if your food tastes bland, just give it a little time. Your palate is healing. Mm-hmm. Your body is craving for you to give it a chance to heal so you can taste what healing food tastes like again. Mm-hmm. And enjoy it. because there is so much, there's like a party in your mouth when you get some herbs and some spices that God designed. But if you've been damaging your taste buds with chemicals for years and years, you can't expect to even taste that stuff in the beginning.
Yeah, so you have to go through that season of, this is disgusting, I don't even want to eat. Well, maybe that's a good thing, you know?
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about this CERT diet, CERT foods.
Adele, should I start singing?
Yeah, I don't know, girl.
I think I would lose some listeners if I started singing.
It's so tempting. I just want to say hello.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
All right. So what's up with CERT foods? You know, they've named it CERT foods. It's named after a group of 7 proteins found in your body called sirtuins. And they've been shown to really regulate a variety of functions in your body. So things like metabolism, inflammation that we've been talking about, and longevity, how long you live. And one thing that I talk a lot about in workshops is your telomeres. That's the length of your telomeres has a direct correlation to how long you live, longevity. So if you want to live longer, cut sugar out, by the way. That's the very thing that can shorten your telomeres. The CERT food diet doesn't talk about telomeres. I think that's probably a little bit too scientific for them. But
those get nerdy for us again.
There we go. This was founded in the UK, and really it's the list of foods that support the sirtuins in the body. And these are just the foods that are this really high nutrient density, kale being one of them, strawberries and blueberries, matcha green tea. Matcha is the leaves that are kind of dried and pulverized. So you actually drink the whole tea instead of just steeping it in the leaves. And then there's things like turmeric, which we know is anti-inflammatory. By the way, I love chopping up some fresh turmeric root in anything, like sauteing it in vegetables, putting it on a salad. So yummy. Some greens like arugula, capers is a CERT food, onions, soy, which I'm not a huge advocate of soy. Most soy is genetically modified, has an estrogenic effect. Most women are toxic in estrogen anyway. So, but I think the CERT foods this has really gotten some claim to fame because red wine and dark chocolate are on there. But Dr. Kaylee, you and I, this list of foods is like, yeah,
duh.
Like, duh, these are foods that are really healing for you.
I've been trying to say this for years.
Yeah, hello.
Come up with a funny name.
Yeah.
We would have been millionaires, billionaires by now.
Yes, we would just need somebody to do it, like Adele, you know. But I think the biggest thing on the CERT food diet is the green juice that they recommend. And so it's juicing some greens like kale, arugula, parsley, celery, and ginger and apple, and then some lemon in there, some matcha green tea, which is just, again, high nutrient density. It's alkalizing. It's anti-inflammatory. Ginger is one of the most potent anti-inflammatory foods that you can eat. So are blueberries and turmeric. So if it's reducing inflammation, it's going to put you into a healing state, shift your body back into fat burning, and allow you to purge the toxins that the fat cells hold. Your body's not going to do that if you're in an inflamed state. It's going to be in a protective state where it's going to say, I can't do anything. I can't release anything. I'm just going to keep storing because that's protecting. It's a survival mechanism.
Yeah, and that's it's funny, like what you just read. Like I'm like, that's the Kaylee diet.
Yeah,
you know? Like that's what I eat. You know, and that's the thing is that we have to like we overcomplicate food. And when I talk about like let's get back to real food, that's the kind of stuff like and this is coming. This like guys, like I did not come out of the womb like eating kale chips and loving salads. Like in fact, when I was a kid, it was like chicken nuggets and French fries were like my place to be. Salads were foreign to me. and I wanted nothing to do with anything healthy really until this last probably 12, 14 years. And so wherever you're at, like as you're listening to Dr. Traci, now this is a learned habit from both of us. But if I ever hear somebody tell me like they can't eat that or they don't like it, they don't like the flavor, it's like suck it up and just start eating it.
Did you know that children need to be introduced to foods over 7 times before they might start liking it? And so if you didn't get that chance as a child, why are you only giving yourself one chance? I will say this. I do not like watermelon. It is anti-American. I know. But you know what? Every year, I'm like, maybe this is my year.
This is it.
And I just take a bite to think, maybe I'll like it this time. I don't, ever. So there's going to be foods you just don't like. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's my body doesn't want it. I just don't like it.
That's how I am. Like, that's how I am with cucumbers. Right? Like I cannot. I can do it like if it's cucumber water, but if I've got cucumbers in my salad or somebody just chops up cucumbers as a snack for me, I'm like, not happening. I try it and I'm like, nope, it's not cutting it for me. Right? Yeah. And so the thing is that, like, I'm not saying you're gonna love everything, and that's okay. But it's not to say,
but
like,
you have to know that it's rare.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and then there's some things where you just need to eat it because it's good for you. And
sometimes it's like kimchi and like sauerkraut and stuff. Like that is not my favorite thing to eat. But I'll keep trying it because I know how good it is for my gut. I know how good it is but it like even like the thought of it is like it's not okay with me, right? So there's things that you're gonna come across that you don't like. Okay, you don't like it. Move on to the next thing. But don't give up healthy eating because of one thing.
If you were like Dr. Kaylee and me, I was raised the same way. I mean, the only salad I ever saw come across our dinner table was iceberg lettuce with not just one dressing, but it was French and blue cheese combined. So gross.
And as a kid, I skipped the lettuce and I just put croutons and ranch dressing. Like that was my salad. 0 lettuce. Croutons
but my 2-year-old, I will tell you, my 2-year-old came into my office yesterday and I said, "What'd you have for lunch, baby?" And she said, "I had a salad and chicken and some blueberries." 2.
But kids don't like that stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
Yeah.
Right?
You just have to expose it to them over and over and over again. And I'm not saying that I'm a perfect, like there are times where I've given my kids, we're eating some cheese pizza, you know, but the majority of the time,
you're a good mom.
We don't make kid food. Yeah. Yeah. We don't make kid food. Our kids eat what we eat because we want them to have, and if they're not going to eat it, you know, we just say you have to try it. You have to at least take one bite of everything. And then sooner or later, they're going to know this is what we eat as a family. We sit down to eat every night, almost most nights of the week, besides when my husband and I are going on a date, because we want them to have that experience around food, that this is something we do as a family. We don't eat and run. We enjoy it. We are mindful. We pray over our food. There's just so much more to food than just the eating piece. So again, all of these things combined, you know, like cert food, I don't know, add some healthy foods in, some foods that God made, some colorful ones. Dark chocolate is great because it has bioflavonoids and B vitamins, but it's not great when it's 80% sugar and, you know, a very small percent of chocolate. It has to be over 85% cocoa. And most people say, "I love my chocolate." I'm like, no, you love your sugar. There aren't many people who are just devouring bars of chocolate that are 85+% cocoa. And
I found for all you chocolate lovers, Lily's chocolate.
Lily
is like sent from heaven because but there's also like the bad ones. You've got to look and see what the ingredients are, and if it's chocolate with stevia, then you're set. But some of them have some of the bad sugars in there and the things that will cause inflammation. And it may, like, there's times where I'm like, I want to just eat this whole entire bar. Like, that's not what it's designed for. Put it in the refrigerator, take a little piece at a time, walk away, do your thing. And so it's all in what's that word, moderation,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing what's allowed and what's not. And even with these cert diet things, again, getting back to this, like, if we can just go, like, 2 weeks ago you gave us the fast food challenge. Like, let's stay away from processed foods this month. Like, let's make our meals at home and make them from real fruits, real vegetables, real meats, and not out of a box or not out of something that was frozen at some point. And let's see what the reaction is going to be of your body. If you just start feeding your body real food, it will respond. It doesn't have a choice but to respond in a positive way.
I love that. I think that food that is living, that was real and living, has things more than just the macro and micronutrients. It's enzyme rich. We could talk for an entire hour at what happens when you process foods. Mm-hmm. But think about wheat, for example. The reason it's enriched is because they've had to bleach it. They bleach it, strip all of the nutrients out of it, and then have to add things back in. It just doesn't make any sense at all. You just gotta go back to just basic principles around why you eat. And that's to fuel your body and to heal your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just it really is a mindset shift. And I know that's probably the biggest component of these diets and the stuff that people get stuck with is essentially there's a food addiction. I was watching a video from Dr. Majors from 4 years ago, and he was talking about, like, you're not addicted to alcohol. You're not addicted to the drug. You're not addicted to the food. You're addicted to being able to cover up some sort of an emotion, some sort of a feeling. And so you go to the cabinet and you stuff your mouth, and it's satisfying. It feels good. Like, you're in control of what you're putting in your mouth, and so you can control this emotion. But if you continue to just cover this thing up with food, it's like, let's get to the real issue. Like, why are we having this emotion in the first place? Why are we feeling this way in the first place? What do we need to do to address that in order to start loving the body that you've been given? Because you're only given one body. You're only ever going to get one body. And so we have to start, like, I see, like, when I eat, I did a kind of a sermon on this a couple months ago, and it was like, we've got to start feeding the Jesus that lives inside of us. Like, mm-hmm. I see this Jesus living in me, and I'm like, does he really want to eat the pizza or the burger and the fries? Or would he be happier if I were to make a meal and feed him nutritious meals? So I think about, like, that's where I have to go with my brain, because, I'm just like everybody else. I want the ice cream. I want, like, I love the salty, the crunchy. I love the bag of chips. I love the truffle fries at a restaurant. Like, I love the greasy, salty, crunchy stuff. But I know that in the long run, even just after I feel satisfied for that moment, I'm going to feel sick. And then in the long run, I'm not going to be happy with the results. So we have to start higher level thinking from where we're at. I just think it's a whole mindset shift that we have to get to. And that's why we took 4 weeks to talk about weight loss, right? This isn't a quick conversation.
I know. And I think here's the challenge is, let's have a no processed food challenge. But when you're taking something out like that, you will be stuck with cravings. Mm-hmm. When you're going to deprive yourself, because that's really for a moment, not the long term, but for the next couple of weeks, if you're really committing to this, you're going to feel in deprivation. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be thinking about, wow, I was going to the pantry because I wanted to procrastinate doing the dishes. That's been mine. Like, that's That's mine. Or I'm looking at the dishes being done. I would rather, spend time with my kids or have, something, and I just procrastinate, or I find something else to do. And you need to have a plan for when those feelings or those coping mechanisms start to show up for you. And so mine is I make a cup of hot herbal tea. Not everybody loves tea like that. Maybe you just do some hot water with some lemon in it. Just to have something to negate the craving and the whatever you're looking for. But you have to have a plan. Maybe when that feeling comes up and I'll tell you what, it has to be relatively easy for you to do. Because if you're like, oh, every time I get a craving, I'm going to work out. No, you won't.
Not gonna happen.
Sorry, not happening. It's just.
I promise you that will not happen. You know, for me, I talked about this a couple weeks ago, is like on my counter, we make a batch of kale chips a couple times a week. And I have them sitting on my counter. Because I know, like, when I come home from work, I want a snack. And so I'm eating kale. That's like my salad, right? And so I get to have that, like, crunchy, salty thing. But that, for me, is that works, right? Maybe it's a thing of nuts. Maybe it's some blueberries sitting in the fridge where you can just go and grab, like, they're ready to grab. Like, you don't have to clean them. You don't have to get them prepared. They're ready for you to grab and eat. Because as soon as you have to go and, like, put work into doing it in that moment, you're going to veer off to the other end, or go to the store. And, like, I went to the store yesterday because I was hungry after I worked out and I had to go do a thing. And I was like, I'm going to buy everything in here and I'm going to eat all of it. Right. And so I had to, like, okay, let's like tone it down. Like, make sure you're looking at the ingredients, be intentional about what you're putting into your body. This still matters. But, like, I had a craving to eat literally the whole entire store. Then I'm like, Traci's back here. She's listening. She's watching.
Maybe that's what you have in place too, is like, hey, maybe you enlist Dr. Kaylee as your mentor, and you say, okay, she is going to be my virtual mentor, and you're going to pretend like she's shopping with you.
Like a little Kaylee's on your cart.
Yeah.
In the corner.
Yeah, sitting on the corner. Like, don't put those Doritos in there.
Don't you do it.
Maybe if you've been having a hard time getting out of bed in the morning to move your body, you pretend, like, you just say, if Jesus was in this room right now and I committed to myself, he would say, child, get up.
Mm-hmm.
It's biblical. Why do you lie there, you sluggard? That's what we joke about that. But get up and move, get up and plan, get up and put your armor on, get equipped for your day, for the battlefield of your mind. That is a daily preparation. You need to make sure you're taking time for yourself. If you're not planning and really looking at how you need to lay this stuff out, it's not going to move forward for you. And you're going to look back at the beginning of next year, 2021, with frustration and disappointment. And it does not have to be that way. All you have to do is just commit and make a change. One little thing at a time is going to have a huge accumulative effect if you look back over 12 months. Maybe you just need to say, just this month, like, just pick a challenge for you. Maybe it's just fast food for this month. And then once you've created a habit around not going through the drive-through and eating in your car, then you choose the next thing to tackle. Maybe you need to stop drinking so much beer and wine. Maybe you need to stop buying boxed wine so you can tell how much you're drinking. I don't know. Maybe it's you need to cut sugar out and get really serious about it. So and
it's a decision, and it's up to you. Like, I think when this airs, when is this coming out? Tuesday, the 21st. When this episode airs, it will be 2 years since I've had a sip of alcohol. And that is it was a massive decision that I had. Like that was a personal, it wasn't for anybody else but for myself. I feel better. I don't, and there's still moments like even like Thanksgiving this year, it was like, man, I want to have a drink, and I just, but I knew in my mind, like I set something up and I've gotten into a habit. Maybe if your thing is food and it's fast food, like put some water in the car, and every single time you think you want to eat it, like just start chugging water, because that's going to get rid of that like craving feeling that you have. It's just a matter of having to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not the food that's the issue. It's the mindset towards the food. So wherever you're at, like we would love to help. I've got Traci in my corner. I've got my two best friends. I've got my mom. My best friends and my mom are doing this push-up challenge, and we have to do X amount of push-ups every single day. And whenever we're done, we send a green check mark into a group text. And if we don't send the check mark by the end of the day, it's like, hey, did you do it? Did you do your push-ups? Are you on this? And so I've got 3 people holding me accountable on that. And I know that if I miss it, they're going to ask me the next day, like, what happened? Where were you? And so get people to be on board with this. Like if you're in the Battle Ready Nation group, post it in there. Like, what is the thing that you're going after? How can we help you? How can we motivate you? How can we stay in conjunction with you to be your cheerleaders? That's all that group is about.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, I feel like we could talk for 6 hours on this one.
I know. It's a big one. I think it's a big one because most people have tried everything or tried something. And all of my patients that come into my door say, I've tried X, Y, Z, like something, and have failed.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to know that it's not failing, it's failing forward.
Yeah.
Because maybe that didn't work for you, but do not give up. Don't quit. Just keep finding the next thing, because there is a way. There are people who have done it before you, who have made it possible, who have overcome, who have persevered, and you can too. And you have to believe that for yourself. Nobody can believe that for you but you.
And it starts with your mind. So again, like write it out, because you're going to forget. You're going to forget halfway through the day. So write out what your goal is, write out why you're doing it. If you need help with figuring out a goal, start with eating real food. And we're going to go into, there's going to be some stuff released through Battle Ready with some different lifestyle changes and the go-to foods and things, but we want to get really specific. We want to kind of lay the foundation for you first, and give you the opportunity to make some really good changes. I wanted to talk about intermittent fasting, but next week we're going to talk about gut health, and I think that we could kind of shove that in there with that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that is a fad. I don't think
I don't think it is either.
It's something everyone's fasting to some degree. That's why they call it breakfast.
Break
your
fast.
Break fast. So yeah, we'll talk about that next week.
I think so. Anything you want to add to kind of wrap this up and close up the combo?
One thing I would say is if you've tried any of these fad things that don't look at as a fad, do some after action review and figure out the things that made you feel the best, that you saw the biggest change in your body, and start to implement those things again.
Yeah.
For your lifestyle.
Yeah. And really, like, even in our office, like we do 28-day, 30-day challenges with our patients, but the whole time through that, it's like, okay, this is just the start to a totally different lifestyle change. And so it's not to quit at the end of the 28 or 30 days. It's to set you up for a success. Like, this should just be your minimum standard of engagement. And how can you go higher, or when are you going to allow yourself to cheat? So guys, thanks for listening. I'm going to wrap this up because we could go for probably 16 hours if you and I have tried to. So,
yeah.
I'm thank you, Dr. Traci, for taking time out of your day again this week. I'm excited for you guys. Let's get some commentary going. Ask us questions. Dr. Traci's in the Battle Ready Nation group, so if you have a specific question for her, you can tag her in that, or ask me and I'll tag her and bring it into what we've got going on. So I love you, Dr. Traci. Thank you for all of your knowledge and your wisdom and being here with us. And I look forward to wrapping up this series with you next week.
Such an honor to be here.
Love y'all. Have a good week. Peace.